Mark Kerr's story is one of power, pain, and redemption. Known as the Smashing Machine, he was a beast inside the cage, dominating opponents with raw strength and skill. But outside the cage, Kerr's life was anything but controlled. His journey took him from being a promising wrestling prodigy to one of MMA's most feared competitors, and then to rock bottom. What happened to this once great fighter? What led to his downfall, and how did he fight to survive? This is Mark Kerr's story, a story of battle, addiction, and ultimately, survival. Welcome to Iron Arena, where we explore the lives of fighters who overcame the odds. Mark Kerr was born on December 22, 1968, in Toledo, Ohio, to a middle-class family. From a young age, Kerr showed an undeniable passion for sports. He wasn't one to shy away from competition, and his natural athletic ability quickly became apparent. Wrestling became his sport of choice, and by the time he was in high school, he had already made a name for himself on the mat. His commitment to wrestling led him to the University of Buffalo, where he became a two-time NCAA All-American wrestler. He was a powerhouse, fast, strong, and technically sound. Kerr was just starting to scratch the surface of his potential. The dream of competing on the world stage was within his reach. But what he didn't know was that the struggles he faced early on would soon pale in comparison to the battles he would face later in life. His future was about to change forever, and he had no idea that MMA, with all its glory and pain, would become his new battleground. Drugs. As Kerr transitioned from wrestling to mixed martial arts, he found a new world of challenges. MMA was physically demanding, and the stakes were high. To keep up with the intense training and grueling competition, Kerr began turning to painkillers to manage the constant injuries he was accumulating. What started as a solution to pain soon became a dangerous crutch. Painkillers and other substances helped him continue competing, but over time, they took control of his life. The more successful Kerr became in the cage, the more he relied on drugs to mask his pain. His addiction didn't just affect his performance in the cage. It affected every aspect of his life, his relationships, his mental health, and his future. While the Smashing Machine was crushing opponents, he was slowly being crushed from within. The drugs were winning, and Kerr was losing control.
And the band's getting bigger and bigger, the introduction to, narcotics. There's cocaine and, a bunch of different stuff around at the time. And I started experimenting a little bit then with it. Taking cocaine for the first time is, the sense of euphoria and alertness. It almost feels like you have Spider-Man senses. Like I can hear an ant walk across, the floor from 30 feet away, and I can smell, I can smell you 2 blocks away.
Foxcatcher and the Olympics. Before he became a famous MMA fighter, Mark Kerr had dreams of competing in the Olympics. He found himself at the prestigious Foxcatcher wrestling facility, training under the guidance of John DuPont, a wealthy and eccentric sponsor. Kerr, alongside some of the world's best wrestlers, honed his skills in preparation for the ultimate challenge, the Olympics. The pressure was immense. The Olympics represented the pinnacle of his career, and Kerr's potential seemed limitless. But the mental and physical toll of training, combined with his growing struggles with painkillers, began to weigh heavily on him. His Olympic dreams started to slip away, and with it, the chance to cement his place in the history of American wrestling. It was here that Kerr made the difficult decision to transition from wrestling to MMA. It was a new beginning, but the shadow of his past struggles would follow him into the cage. The Smashing Machine. In the late 1990s, Mark Kerr emerged as a force to be reckoned with in the world of MMA. His wrestling background gave him a clear advantage, but it was his physicality and raw strength that made him stand out. He dominated opponents, overpowering them with ease. His nickname, the Smashing Machine, became synonymous with destruction inside the cage. Kerr's relentless style earned him respect and admiration, and it seemed like nothing could stop him. But behind the scenes, the cracks were beginning to show. The combination of the mental and physical toll of constant fighting, along with his growing addiction, started to erode the very foundation of his career. Despite his outward success, Kerr was fighting a much more personal and internal battle. The harder he fought in the cage, the harder it became to fight the demons outside of it.
I got to meet Mark Kerr. He wrestled in college at a high level, was just a specimen. That was his nickname, the Specimen, and the Smashing Machine. Right. Wrestlers were telling him to do the UFC back like in the late 90s. And he got offered to do an 8-man tournament in Brazil, in the middle of nowhere. So he went down there and fucking destroyed. And in the finals, he fought Fabio Gurgel. He was just in his guard the whole time, never tried to pass, and just headbutting. He won, and the Brazilians just thought he was a monster. They called him the Smashing Machine in Portuguese, which is like Máquina, destroy, or something like that.
Pain and power. Mark Kerr's physical power was his greatest weapon. He was a beast in the cage, able to overpower nearly every opponent in his path. But as his body broke down from years of intense training and fighting, the pain became unbearable. Painkillers were Kerr's way of coping with the constant aches and injuries. They gave him the strength to continue fighting, but they also chipped away at his body and mind. The power that had once made him unstoppable was now a double-edged sword. The drugs numbed the pain, but they also clouded his judgment, leading to poor decisions both in and out of the cage. Despite his incredible physicality, Kerr's internal struggles were taking a toll on his career and his life. He was no longer just battling his opponents, he was battling himself. Rock bottom. By the early 2000s, Mark Kerr's life had spiraled out of control. His addiction had taken over, and his career was in free fall. The man who once dominated in the cage was now a shadow of his former self. His physical body had deteriorated, his mental health was in shambles, and his relationships were falling apart.
I think Pride just wanted the finished product. They didn't really particularly care how it got there. You know, they wanted you to look good, they wanted you to perform well, but they didn't particularly care if you ended up taking X, Y, and Z to get in the ring and look good and give them a good performance. They never questioned whether or not my blood pressure was too high. They never questioned whether or not my weight was too much or too little. They just wanted the end product.
Rock bottom. The very thing that had once made him a champion, his strength, was now a curse. Kerr was at a crossroads. He could continue down the destructive path, or he could fight for his life. At this low point, Kerr had to face the harsh reality. If he wanted to survive, he had to confront his demons and start rebuilding his life from the ground up. It was the hardest fight he had ever faced, struggling to stay afloat. Even though Kerr was at rock bottom, he refused to give up. The battle was far from over. He sought help and entered rehab, starting the long process of recovery. But the road to redemption wasn't easy. Every day was a challenge, and it felt like he was fighting a battle on multiple fronts. The addiction didn't disappear overnight, and the damage he had done to his body was irreversible. But Kerr had something to fight for: his life, his future, and the chance to make things right. Slowly, with dedication and support, he began to piece his life back together. It wasn't just about recovery. It was about regaining his identity, rebuilding his self-worth, and finding a new sense of purpose. Mark Kerr's fight for survival was just beginning, but this time, he wasn't fighting alone. Life today. Mark Kerr is living a life far removed from the chaos and destruction of his past. He is no longer just the smashing machine. He is a man who has learned to embrace peace and recovery.
One of the harder parts for me to adjust to life now is that I've lived the life I've lived. That I've fought in front of 60, 70,000 people. Well, I've won world championships. I've been paid, hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. And now I just live a regular life. Sometimes it's hard. Monthly, I don't have adrenaline juicing through my veins. I don't have that level of excitement in my life. So sometimes I think maybe the boredom gets to me.
Kerr has become an advocate for mental health and addiction recovery, using his story to inspire others. He works with young athletes, helping them navigate the pressures of competition and the challenges of mental health. Kerr's focus is no longer on physical dominance. It's on sharing his journey with others, showing them that redemption is possible. His past will always be a part of him, but it no longer defines him. He has risen from the ashes, and his story continues to inspire those who are struggling to overcome their own battles. Mark Kerr's life has been one of incredible highs and devastating lows. From his rise to fame, his struggles with addiction, to his ultimate fight for redemption, his story is a powerful reminder that no matter how hard you fall, you can always rise again. If you were inspired by Mark Kerr's journey, be sure to subscribe to Iron Arena for more stories of fighters who faced overwhelming adversity and found the strength to fight through it. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. Stay strong, keep fighting, and remember the real battle is the one you fight for yourself.